Welcome everyone for our special episode of Finance. In our program called COP26 in 26 minutes, I am Buket Altınçelik. I am the moderator of this special episode. And why we have this special episode? Because all of the decisions taken at COP26 are inextricably linked to finance, because the main sector that will underpin all the green transformation is finance. To achieve our climate goals, every company, every financial firm, every bank, insurer, and investor will need to change. And countries need to manage the increasing impacts of climate change, and they need the funding to do it. And in terms of the scale and speed of the changes, we will require all forms of finance, public and private both. In this regard, we need to turn the billions of money into a meaningful contribution for people and the planet. So in order to talk what finance means, I have a very special guest today. First of all, Emily Skelton. She's the head of the Sustainability Department at ACCA, Association of Chartered Certified Accountants. Emily, welcome to our program.
Thank you.
Emily is connecting from the UK right now, and it's pretty early in the morning, so good morning as well. And our other special guest is Yaman Alkan. He's a partner at Sustainability Department at Mazars Denge. Yaman, welcome also. Welcome too.
Thank you, Buket. Good morning, Emily.
Good morning.
So, welcome again. We are delighted to have you here. Since we have only 26 minutes and I wasted 2 of them, I would like to go through the questions first and ask my first question. So, Emmeline, what was important at COP26 about finance?
This was the first COP where the private sector has really been engaged in sustainable development and climate change. And there's a promise of 130 trillion of private capital to help the world economies move towards net zero. So it was widely welcomed at COP26. However, there are concerns that the target of nations reaching net zero by 2050 set out in the Paris Agreement will not be achieved. So for example, India, the Indian Prime Minister said that his country won't achieve net zero until 2070. But separately, a number of national industry groups have committed to meeting the target. So 60 of the FTSE 100 companies in the UK, for example, announced at COP26 that they were committed to net zero by 2050. So overall, over 5,000 companies worldwide have joined the United Nations Race to Zero campaign. So for me, that really emphasises the importance of private sector and finance in the role of reaching net zero.
So it's very important points, and it's brought lots of changes probably. And Yaman, also, I would like to ask you that these decisions taken in Glasgow, what means for finance? From your point of view.
Yeah, thank you. Finance Day was the historic day, in my opinion. At COP26, one more time, we understand that the finance community will be the gatekeepers of the green transition and the sustainable investment. I feel that it's something that's happening over the first time, besides the promises and the targets, etc. And the COVID-19 pandemic and IPCC report and finally COP26 conference have shown us the extreme consequences of non-financial risks on businesses and entire industries and global economies. But now the way we perceive risk has broadened beyond the traditional risks, such as the credit risk, the competition, market factors, including operational risks, cyber risk, etc., and the ESG, of course, as well as the ESG factors. And companies need a holistic, integrated approach to risk management and taking into account the interconnected risks. And I believe that the finance community have a crucial role to play in executing decisions taken in Glasgow, and also in identifying and managing non-financial risk, as well as maximizing the opportunities related to climate risk. So risk management is not all about eliminating all risk. It's about identifying and responding to risk that creates value for company and its shareholders. And after COP26, the challenge for companies will continue in understanding how to address the non-financial risks and what they mean for the organization and business. And as all the finance professionals can provide insight and advice on how to adapt these aspects, the company's strategy, and apply it to reporting and disclosures. Over to you, Luca.
So since we are talking about companies, I would like to ask another question to Emily, that what do companies need to do after all these revolutionary movements?
Sure. I definitely think understanding their climate risk, understanding and embedding that risk in their core business strategy. And climate related risks are happening now. So think about the floodings in the world. It's been the hottest 7 years recorded on record. So we are living through change now. And as COP26 has emphasized, this is science. The KPIs, or companies need to look at the science-based targets, because these are now and real. And it really hit home, or was quite clear, when the International Standards Board, there's an international framework for sustainability that was launched at COP, and the urgency for companies to start complying and disclosing within the next 3 to 4 years. And even 4 years is too far away. Companies need to be proactive right now. So there was recommendations from the Task Force for Climate Related Disclosures. So they have gained enormous traction in the private and public sectors. And it's great because their success has exceeded expectations, but the limits that what can be achieved using a voluntary framework have been reached. So now companies must act. And the new standards that give a minimum level for companies to start reporting and measuring.
It brought my mind that what about in terms of accountability and transparency, and how put an index framework for it?
Exactly.
So, and Yaman, also, you already mentioned how companies will tackle with these problems, but these new developments, actually, not problems. But what's your view about this too?
I totally agree with what Emily said. I don't want to repeat the same. So I would like to draw your attention to another aspect. Companies that have set net zero emissions targets in order to meet Paris agreements, or will set a net zero targets, and now will be establishing targeted strategies and short and medium term targets to decarbonize their business models and reduce emissions. If these actions result in material financial impacts, they will need to be reflected in their company's financial reporting. In the current environment, I think companies need to keep in mind two important factors. First, despite the issues of various frameworks by standard setters, as Emily mentioned, IFRS is announcing its ISSB, the board down to the road, and some jurisdictions are on the path to mandate TCFD, the Task Force Climate Financial Disclosures requirements, while others are strongly encouraging their use. Also, yes, 3-4 years are very long time. I believe it should be in the at least 1 or 2 years. We cannot wait a decade. And also the adaptation of these standards will take some time for Turkey. And standards have not changed for this year current reporting cycle. This is my first important point. And secondly, materiality in financial reporting remains an entity level decision. Climate-related matters will not be financially material to all companies. In addition to Paris-aligned scenario analysis, or the United Nations SDGs Sustainability Development Goals, is not a requirement under either IFRS or our Turkish local GAAP. So accordingly, in preparing the company's future financial reports with changing expectation about climate-related disclosure, companies must evaluate what some stakeholders, mostly the investors, would like companies to report and where they would like it to report in. I mean, in the annual financial narrative part, or in the integrated reporting or sustainability report, etc. And also they have to evaluate what is required or allowed under the current standards and regulatory requirements. So it's a dynamic world. The targets and the disclosure alignments and integration are very important. As I mentioned in the beginning, in the first question, the consultants, accountants in business have a very critical role to play in assisting companies reconcile this kind of different perspectives. And finally, in terms of transparency, it has always been at the heart of the role played all financial professionals. With the respect of the climate-related reporting, as a finance community, we must do our part in helping to translate risk and opportunities into the numbers. For example, Paris-aligned climate scenario analysis and risk assessments can be complex areas in which finance guys need to be involved. Without quantification, monetarizing of these risks and opportunities, companies will find it hard to evaluate financial impact and compare climate change against their enterprise risks, and investors will not be able to make informed decisions about the allocation of their capital. That's all from my part. Thanks. Over to you, Buket.
Thank you. Emily, would you like to add something in addition to Yaman's remarks?
Sure. Following on, I definitely think that companies should start now to disclose more information, just to allow stakeholders to understand how they are addressing sustainability issues, and importantly, transforming their organizations for success in the future. Standards aren't perfect, but at least there's more greater transparency and accountability. So there's WEF and IBC metrics, which are a good place to start. I mean, secondly, following on, regulators often focus on making listed companies increasingly disclose. So let's not ignore private companies or small, medium-sized companies. We cannot allow carbon to leave listed companies to just sit with private companies or those exempt from disclosures. So we need carbon to reduce, not just disappear from view. So all organizations over a certain size should provide the needed transparency. And I guess, looking at what Mazars do, reporting needs assuring. So it's important that to give confidence to investors. So we shouldn't let the risks of poor information and greenwashing undermine trust, not just individual organizations, but in the whole system, the whole ecosystem. So maybe independent assurance is the best way to stop that. And build confidence. It's about building confidence in information which exists today in the financial information systems.
Thank you so much.
Maybe.
Yeah, please.
Maybe, Buket, I can comment on greenwashing. At COP26, we have also seen that, as Evelyn mentioned, $130 trillion private capital to transform the economy for net zero, which needs to be monitored through corporate reporting as a tool. And this reporting needs to be assured as reasonable level. So in order to avoid poor quality information, we have a huge role to play in combating and minimizing the greenwashing. And that's absolutely at the heart of what we do in terms of certifying and verifying disclosures made by companies to ensure that sustainability disclosures are just reliable and credible as their financial reporting. So yeah, I will finish up saying that sustainability is not is more than marketing. We proactively need to be part of the solution, not the problem.
Emmeline, would you like to say something, or?
I agree. And, to alleviate climate change successfully, we must effectively configure the way we do things. Business is at the heart of this. So one of the key things we can do to address climate change is to ensure that shareholders, business stakeholders, engage in preserving the value of their investments. And this is where things like climate disclosures become very important.
Thank you so much. I would like to also give statistics. According to Greenpeace data, fossil fuel companies use 81% greenwashing. So this is the
wow
latest report. So it's so important to check, have a checkpoint about sustainability, as both of you mentioned. And another question is for ACCA's position in this matter. So Emmeline, could you please tell us about how ACCA stands for sustainability?
Sure. I mean, the great thing about ACCA, it's global, so it's got an international presence. And one thing that's really important is the accountant or the finance professional is a continuous learner. So, you need to keep learning. And what we do at ACCA is on our website, you can access material, like there's a sustainability hub open for everyone, kind of giving COP26 updates for the profession to keep learning. And the way that we believe is through education, and now when you become a qualified accountant, we now have CPDs or modules in sustainability in finance. So it's going to become such a key part of the accountant's role.
Okay, thank you so much. And I also would like to ask you that, so since you were in Glasgow and witnessed the whole event, could you please tell us a little bit of the atmosphere of the place, the negotiation processes that you witnessed, briefly your observations?
Sure. So I think last week was, when the heads of state flew in, and, it was very exciting. I was in a small panel with heads of state which are women, and I think there's only 10 women who are heads of state out of 140 leaders. So they did a good message around climate change isn't gender neutral. So that's one thing I really took home, and women should support women leaders. So there's lots of NGOs, lots of countries representing different pavilions, kind of promoting what they're doing to reach net zero, so things like green finance. I think this week is the serious week in terms of heads down negotiations. I think last night the UK presidency released their draft findings, what that could be. There's something going on between the USA and China, so the biggest two countries that are carbon emitters. So that's going to be fascinating to understand, because obviously China and Russia weren't present at COP. So I think these last 48 hours now are crucial to get agreements. I know that there's been pairings of developed countries with developing countries in the negotiation process. So I think it's a very complex process, and hopefully there should be, I think this COP26 is where are we at since Paris? It's the ratchet. So where are we at? What do we need to do now?
Yeah, I mean, it's very important remarks. First of all, women belong to all places that decisions are being made. So we want to see much more women at the high level platforms as a representative. And also, as you say, that draft declaration are announced, but some small island states made their scrutiny about because they are not, unfortunately, to get involved that much. But it's very optimistic declaration as well, according to some parties too. So, and it was so valuable to hear from your experience too. And my other question is for Yaman, actually. How do you think that these decisions are being made in Glasgow will affect Turkey and regional? Also, it can be regional as well, Turkey and the region that Turkey belongs to.
Yes, yeah, it's already started to affect. I believe our institutions announced their, the action plans, also the evolutions regarding the COP26. So, and also the Turkey has the second most crowded population in the COP26, I guess, after the Brazil. And I believe sincerely that it will affect us very positively, and but it will take some time, of course, in terms of the adaptation of the standards. We have still the prototype of the IFRS and its TCFD recommendations. We are just disclosing our sustainability or integrated report according to that standards, and hopefully we will have the final adaptation soon, because as a finance and or consulting person, we need the frameworks and to apply in. But now the investors wants more in the dynamic world. They don't wait the standards, and that's why our companies, as Emmeline said, the listed ones and also the small ones, everyone should start to disclose their all non-financial and also the financials, and they should integrate both and align these for assurance purposes. So that's all from me. And for regional, I don't know, maybe Emmeline comments for this question as well.
But I think the biggest challenge when we talk about standard, the frameworks and the standards, is actually collection of data. So if you think about sustainability and non-financial data, it's quite tough. It's not black and white, and understanding what that data is and how to have the systems and mindset and education, and to have finance professionals understanding how to do this process is also, I think, going to be a challenge, especially in big companies with subsidiaries in developing countries. And I think that data collection is a really big challenge in the ECG world. I don't know if you agree, but
exactly. So yes, we as finance professionals, we need to be very proactive about that, to educate ourselves and our staff also. And in also Turkey, maybe it's too early to say, to give the services for assurance as a reasonable level. But in 3 years, and also the adaptation of the European Union, the directives for the Green Deals, and we need to educate our all colleagues and all the finance people, and at least they need to have the basic sustainability foundation.
Too much responsibilities and too little time. And this is the, I mean, we are closing, we are getting close to ending this event. So I would like to hear your closing remarks. Emmeline, would you like to share your closing remarks?
I think on the positive, we have to be optimists. This is the first COP where finance has been really engaged, and the first time that Mark Carney stood up in front of all the world leaders and announced the importance of the function that finance has to play. I mean, that's great. There's never been a climate standard before, IFRS, so it's quite groundbreaking, and I think it really demonstrates the importance of the role that the finance function has to play in reaching net zero. So let's hope that with the standards, companies can get the support to reach net zero and get there, because it's a very complex process. But we've got to be climate optimists.
Exactly. There is no time to be pessimistic, because it's impossible. Yeah. And Yaman, also, would you please share your closing remarks?
Yes, of course. I agree to Emmeline as well. As in the beginning, I said the finance community will be the gatekeepers of the green transition and all the sustainable investments. So I feel same thing positively. I believe we will do this together, as mentioned in the 17th of the SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. We can do this together.
It's a very great way to closing the event. Yes, stay optimistic and stay together. And today we were with Emmeline Skelton from ACCA and Yaman Alkan from Mazars Denge. Having the opportunity to take the floor in such an auspicious event organized by Mazars Denge and ACCA was a privilege and pleasure for me. Thank you so much for giving your time, sharing your experience and expertise. And we are looking forward to both of you speak again in the future for future collaborations. Take care.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure for you too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.